Hello, thanks for joining us again today. Today is April the 30th, and this is the last day of April. Hard to believe that 30 days ago, 30 videos ago, we started this little journey in connection with this COVID-19 pandemic, and here we are. So we're going to quickly get into this last of our series, a four-part series, and this is designed to help our teenagers. And so I'm going to be in the book of Daniel today, Daniel chapter 1. So if you want to find that, we're going to read a few verses and to help us with this subject of how our teenagers are going to reflect back and make their judgments, their determinations about our reaction and the reaction around us to this pandemic. So I think this will help them not only in that situation, but any situation, but particularly this one. Daniel chapter 1, the setting is that the children of Israel have been defeated officially, the whole nation, when Jerusalem fell. Nebuchadnezzar, the first of the world leaders, first world empire leaders, came in, his army, and destroyed all of Jerusalem, the walls, the temple, all of it, and deported most of the people back to Babylon. It's about 500 miles east from Jerusalem back to Babylon. And as we're going to read here, the idea was to take those who would be profitable to his kingdom, and obviously then try to reprogram them so they wouldn't have such an affinity, such a desire to be in their own home country, which is very natural. So we're going to begin here in Daniel chapter 1, verse number 3. It says, "And the king spake unto Ashpenaz, the master of his eunuchs, that he should bring certain of the children of Israel and of the king's seed and of the princes." So we're talking about children here. Now when it says children, normally what we say children, we think of someone probably, 10 years or younger, maybe even younger. We don't know exactly what the age is, but it seems like to me, just trying to make a determination here, they're probably close to what we call a teenager. Now, the word teenager is not used in the Bible. We see the word youth and so on, but when it says children here, we can assume that they're probably closer to a teenage age, okay? It says in verse 4, "Children in whom was no blemish, but well favored and skillful in all wisdom and cunning and knowledge and understanding science, and such as had ability in them to stand in the king's palace, and whom they might teach the learning and the tongue of the Chaldeans." So this was to be a reprogramming process. Teach them a different language, teach them what the Chaldeans know and all of that, and that way it'll be less of what they know. Bear in mind these are children, so they don't have a lot of knowledge anyway. They don't have a lot of experience, and they're going to grow up in this land, so they're naturally going to be affected by that culture. But here we have, as we get into the next phase of this, part of that involved a diet program. In other words, the idea was to get them to eat all the king's supplied ingredients, the meat, the Bible used the word wine, all of that, so that when they stand before the king and they're to be shown off, so to speak, that this will be kind of a validation of their program of how great it is. So notice here in verse number 5, "And the king appointed them a daily provision of the king's meat and of the wine which he drank, so nourishing them 3 years." So that's a long program, 3 years. "That at the end thereof they might stand before the king." So a 3-year program, and of course this would involve this diet process. We find here now a young man, a child, teenager, whatever the age is, he's young, no doubt about it, and his name is Daniel, and he's going to show his character. It says here in verse number 8, "But Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with the portion of the king's meat, nor with the wine which he drank. Therefore he requested of the prince of the eunuchs that he might not defile himself." So, long story short, Daniel says, I got a deal for you, Ashpenaz. He says, if you'll give us 10 days, we'll show you a little test. We don't need the king's meat. We don't need the king's wine. We don't need any of that. Our God is going to help us be better than what these supplied dietary measures that are being made to make us look better. We're going to be better because God will make us better. Basically, we'll drink water and we'll eat pulse or soup. So it seems like a very meager meal. But he says, if you give us 10 days, we'll show you. Allow the other children to eat what you say you're going to give us, and then let us have our own diet, our own diet different than the king's, and we'll show you how much better we'll be. That's exactly what happened. They ended up being better. But the idea here is children, young people, having to make a decision. And Daniel kind of seems to be the leader of that. So I want to challenge us as adults and to challenge our young people at the same time. First thing is, for Daniel to have had the character that he had to have had good upbringing. He had to have good influences. And we have to continue as adults to be the right influences for our teenagers, no doubt about it. We've got to be there for them and set the right example. That's why during this pandemic, then we need to be making the right decisions, asking God for wisdom, and walking in His strength and in the power of the Lord, power of the Holy Spirit. We need to do that because they're going to look at how we did things, and to some degree, and maybe to a full degree, they're going to do exactly how we responded. We can't help the response of the government and all of that. We can't help all of that, but we can respond correctly to their responses, and whatever it is, we have to determine that. Daniel had obviously good influences in his life, but secondly, here's a young person having to make decisions that, to be honest with you, some adults won't make. They don't want to be in that position, or they don't have the courage to make the decision. Daniel did, and his three friends, and I think that's admirable. So we need teenagers that can have that kind of character. We need teenagers that can, in situations like that, and like we're in, like what you're going to face in the future, to have the character that God wants you to have to be able to make these decisions. And then, of course, the test was passed because God is the one who gave them the victory in that test. It's God who gave the strength. It's God who made them look better as compared to the other children eating the king's diet. And so that's the last part of this. We need to trust God to help us to be better, to help us to be what we need to be. The world shouldn't dictate who we are and what we do. God should, and God will make us better. And it ended up, Daniel, of course, when he came to other things in his life, Daniel became renowned for doing what God asked him to do and being who he needed to be. So, of course, as we close this, let me just read verse 17. It says, "As for these four children, God gave them knowledge and skill in all learning and wisdom. And Daniel had understanding in all visions and dreams." And of course, that helped him when he ended up approaching the king and things were going on there. So as I end this series here, the admonition, of course, is for adults to be the right example, because we're going to have an influence in the teenager's life, no doubt about it. But teenagers, regardless of what the influence is, then you need to be determining now that you're going to be taking in the things of God. And again, the typical things that you hear, having some type of life in the Bible, some type of prayer life, making the right choice of friends, and knowing how to see things that are not right and making the right decisions there. Difficult decision here. They were in a strange land. It was a strange time, something they'd never known. And here is we're in this COVID-19 pandemic, different for us, and there's reactions, and we want to make certainly the right choices. So the admonition, of course, is for our young people to look back and judge us and say, you know what, I'm able to make right decisions, godly decisions, spiritual decisions, because I had godly influences in my life. And God will provide that. And that's why it's wonderful, like in cases of a bus ministry where things may not be the right influences in the home, but they can come to church and hear about them and allow God to help them in the situation that they're in. And in some cases, being influenced to the parents, to the adults in the house, where they can help the parents come and get saved and to know the Lord. And oftentimes that happens. Point is, God can use young people. He uses young people, and there is an accountability to God while you're young, and you need to be taking advantage of these days in which they're different, and if you will, then you're going to be able to handle life situations, whatever they are. So we're going to get through this nonetheless, because God's going to get us through it, and we're going to be better for it. So that's what we want for our young people. So adults, teenagers, let's all do the right thing here, and let's allow God to help us to be like a Daniel. And we need many Daniels these days, and so to determine to be a Daniel for the Lord. Okay. So we hope you continue to be blessed and stay healthy. And until tomorrow, have a wonderful day.